I'm still in this industrial park in Corby in Northamptonshire. It's very weird here actually, it's just being built. They call it an enterprise park, but it's like a scene from a J.G. Ballard novel. You know, there's lots of flags flying and half-built structures, but it's completely deserted. Just acres and acres of empty space. It's very bizarre. I'm walking around it barefoot. I'm not quite sure why, it just seemed like a good idea at the time, just because the tarmac is so new, I suppose. So I'm barefoot in the industrial park. But I'm thinking about theology, and I'm thinking about God talk and how irritating it is. But I'm also specifically thinking about the God-shaped hole. I've heard. I can't remember who said that, but I'd heard this phrase, the God-shaped. It's probably Francis Collins. I'm always picking on poor Francis Collins. I think it was probably him who used the phrase, the God-shaped hole. But if it wasn't, no, it was somebody else. And I'm also kind of reminded, although it's tangential and probably incorrect, of something that Professor Anton, said a few probably months ago now, when he was talking about these invisible monkeys haunting YouTube. And I don't know if it was what he intended, but I took from that as a kind of God-shaped hole in the language. Or maybe that, yeah, that's not quite right actually. But maybe, yeah, there's the kind of God-shaped hole, this kind of empty referent that people kind of work around or walk around, or and keeps implying a God by the effect this hole has on the movement of the planets. You know what I mean? Like how the planet Neptune was discovered because of fluctuations in Jupiter's orbit or something. I can't remember. But it's that kind of idea. You know, the other bits of the language move out of the way because this gravity well, this God stamped on it, seems to be coming through, even though it's completely empty. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm trying to think of an analogy or experience. I'm trying to think of a way of experiencing that. And the nearest thing I've got is a kind of personal experience. A few years ago, it's quite a few years ago now actually, when I was I guess kind of an artist, I used to do experiments, what they call experiments, kind of experiential things, you know, that I find interesting, to see what kind of an effect they had on me. And a lot of those were involved kind of restrictions on language. So for example, it's a really simple one, I would just not enter a period of silence, so I was silent for 10 days once. Or speaking in E prime, which is a Korzybskian type language where you suppress the verb to be. Do that for a few days or a few weeks if you can. And other bits of things like that. But one of those I tried was, I tried not using the word I for 10 days. Just not using the word I, you know, the personal pronoun. That was really hard actually. Particularly for the first few days. The first few days I kept making mistakes, kept starting sentences, you know, that kind of thing. But after, you know, after a few days I kind of got used to it and didn't use the word I much at all hardly. And after the end of, as I say, about 10 days, a week or 10 days I did that for, you know, I did feel something quite profound actually. It'd be hard to put into words exactly what that was, maybe I'll have to go at some point. But I did feel something quite profound had shifted in me as a result of that little exercise, that little experiment. But I'm thinking about the change between the first few days, and I kept making these mistakes, and then what happened afterwards. Because the first few days, as I say, I'd slip up, I'd start speaking and start positing this I within my language, and I felt the absence of it a lot. You know what I mean? I kept wanting to say something. I kept wanting to use the word I. And it was a real I-shaped hole in my language really. But after a while, you know, the I just closed up really and healed itself, I suppose. That monster truck there. That is so cool. Yeah, anyway, yeah, what I just said. So I just stopped feeling the need to say it. The seams closed around that little gap, and I didn't notice that I wasn't using it by the end. In fact, starting using it again felt weird. It started feeling like something artificial I was putting into the world. It didn't really need to be there. Anyhow, I don't know what that's got to do with what. Well, yeah, I suppose a similar kind of thing. I suppose with the God-shaped hole. You know, it feels a bit weird, I guess. Maybe it feels weird for some people to not either posit the God literally in language, or just to have this idea of a God. But I think if you do without it for a while, the seams of your understanding just close around it, and you realise that it was just a hole, really. It was just a black hole warping the space-time of your language and your understanding around it unnecessarily. Anyway, that's the end of J.G. Ballard land.